Stewart here from Drone Film Guide, coming to you from Spain, quarantined within the walls of this apartment, passing the time making YouTube videos, and today I'm here to tell you about a piece of photo editing software called Luminar 4. It allows you to do some pretty mad things with your photos, including replacing the skies with one click, and now, thanks to the most recent update, adding elements into that sky again with one click. Drone Film Guide is sponsored by Luminar 4, so if you do purchase the software using the link in the description, then we will earn some commission. Thank you, Jeremy T. Grant, for sending us this photo to work on. It certainly doesn't need salvaged. We're just going to make some modifications, and what I love about this photo is rather than stick the drone miles in the air and take a shot of the top of the lighthouse, we've got a vantage point that was previously inaccessible without a drone, so the drone has been used for good creative reasons here. First things first, let's go into the lens geometry settings and click Auto Distortion Corrections. There you can see we've got rid of some of the barrel distortion that's inherent on the Mavic 2 Pro lens. Next up, let's do a little crop just to get a slightly more focused composition, and we'll straighten out the horizon also. Now we have the lighthouse pretty much in the lower left third of the frame. I used AI accent to get a little pop in the colours, and now we have a great starting point for our modifications. Luminar has just released version 4.2, which is a free upgrade for those of you who already own the software, and one of the cool additions that we've got is AI Augmented Sky. In the creative panel you'll find AI Augmented Sky, click on Object Selection, and we have a bunch of preset objects that we can add into the image. In this case we're going to add some lightning. Click Place Object and we can drag and resize the object in question for a better composition. I quite like that. I think it actually looks quite good and quite realistic. With AI Augmented Sky we have a spectrum from photorealistic all the way through to artistic, you could say, which is another way of saying completely unrealistic. Not necessarily bad, but artistic. It's up to you where you find yourself on that spectrum. We'll try and stick to the photorealistic side of things where we can. So you just need to be careful with these kind of techniques, because of course they can be overused and they can also look ridiculous if they're badly done. So in a way it's almost this kind of push-pull thing, because we have functionality that's so easy to use, but it requires a little bit of skill and discretion to implement it in a tasteful way. Let's try a couple others. I think birds looks quite good. It looks quite realistic, and as you can see you can move them around the image, and also you'll see the way that the birds disappear behind the building. These additions only affect the sky, and it's really quite clever in that respect. A little tip I have is if you zoom in you'll see some pixelation there around the birds, and this can happen when you're overlaying images like this. Go to Advanced Settings, defocus, and slide the slider up a couple of points, and you'll see the way it softens the edges around those birds and just makes it a little bit more of a balanced addition to the photo. If we try Moon 1, I think that looks a bit ridiculous if I'm honest, but Moon 2 I think has some potential. I love those kind of shots where there's a huge moon or sunset in the background, but the way that's achieved is on a tremendous zoom lens to bring all those foreground, midground and background elements together thanks to lens compression. Now, here on a wide angle, that's just not realistic. No moon looks that size, so we're going to try and simulate that by cropping in, getting rid of the wider part of the frame and simulating what it might be like on a zoom lens. Okay, that's a bit better. I think we're somewhat closer to achieving a more realistic result here. Let's make the sky a little bit more purple and let's add a vignette. On reflection with this image I decided to elongate it a little bit more at the top and the bottom, and I love the way it looks, but the purists amongst you will say, well, the moon should have a bit of a shadow in the water, so I've done my best here to replicate a moon shadow. It's fairly straightforward to do here on Luminar 4. We go into the Layers tab and then we create a duplicate of the layer we've just been working on. Change the image opacity to something like 40–50%, you'll see why in a second, and click on Layer Transform. Now you can see the duplicate layer on top of the original layer. For some reason it's a little bit compressed, so we'll stretch that out, but we don't need to be too accurate because we are after all creating a reflection. Go up and flip the image by clicking on the button I've highlighted on the screen and drag the image down to where you want the moon's reflection to be. Click Done, and now you will see a composite of the two layers, original layer underneath and the 38% image opacity layer that we've created on top. The goal now is to keep the reflection of the moon on the water but get rid of the rest of the duplicate layer. So we go into Edit Mask and click Brush. At the top of the screen choose Erase, and now anything we paint will remove that layer of the duplicate image. At the side of the moon there, we're just going to paint away that hard edge to soften it somewhat. And by the end of that, I'd say we're done. It's certainly an improvement. And there you have it, a quick and dirty attempt at least to put the reflection of the moon in the water. If you're a photography purist, then you will not like all this photoshopping nonsense, and I understand that. If you're a landscape photographer sitting out for days on end waiting for the perfect light to capture a photograph for your calendar, then understandably this approach will not suit you. That being said, you probably sell those calendars because of the effort that you put into every single photo. If on the other hand you're a commercial photographer, then you won't have the option of spending 5 days working for the perfect light to take that photo of a building for an annual report or for the cover of some promotional materials. The bottom line is many of us are in the business of image creation, not pure photography, and these tools help greatly in that endeavour. In this instance, the building is Hopetoun House in the outskirts of Edinburgh. I think it's quite magnificent. You will agree, and this photo was taken on a Mavic Air in RAW, so the DNG file format. I've underexposed the foreground elements, so the building and the grass, with a view to retaining as much detail as I can in the sky. We're backlit here, so we're pointing the camera at the sun, so it's a very challenging situation where we need to retain as much of the detail as possible in those highlights. So if we try a quick edit on this, let's raise the exposure of the image as a whole to try and get some decent colours on the ground there. We'll bring the shadows up a little bit as well, and as you can see, we've recovered a lot of interest in the ground there, but the sky is now completely blown out. So we'll do a classic move on landscape photography, and we'll go to the highlights and bring them all the way back to 0 or -100 here. And as you can see, we've brought back a lot of detail in the sky, but not really enough. Luminar 4 has a great function called AI Enhance. It just uses its artificial intelligence technology to look at the brighter and darker elements of the image and try and help you out when it comes to balancing those exposures. And I find it works really, really well with drone photos. So we're going to slide that AI Enhance up. And as you can see, we're getting so much more detail back in the sky. Let's take it all the way up to the top. But the image is broken. See that section in the middle there? It's just completely overexposed. There's nothing we can do with it. There's no detail in those pixels whatsoever. So this is the perfect example of where we have a great photo, but it is broken. If only we could just replace that sky with something similar, and then we would have a better result. Before we replace the sky, let's go into Color, Advanced Settings, select the green and pull the hue all the way down, and we get rid of that kind of bluey, luminousy grass. I don't like it at all. I much prefer this warm, yellowy, browny tone for the grass, and I think that is a huge improvement. We're pretty much done now, so let's replace the sky. We go into the Creative tab, you'll see AI Sky Replacement and a drop-down menu that says Sky Selection. Click on that and pick one of the preset skies. Boom, as simple as that, sky is replaced. Pretty dramatic stuff. Let's take a look at a few others. I really like this one. I think this is super moody. I think that's one of my favourites actually. What's important is that we're trying to match the original photo with the replacement sky. So in the case of the replacement sky, the sun is in front of us, so it maintains the sense that the building is backlit. It's a realistic sky replacement. And finally, this is one of my favourites. Again, the building is backlit, so it's realistic, and I just love the way those clouds wrap around the architecture. You can also use Luminar's Clone and Stamp tool to remove unwanted objects. I was able to do that with all the cars here, and just clean up the image in an example I was working on previously. Hopefully this video inspires you to go tackle some of your old photos. Don't be shy when it comes to using AI sky replacement or this new sky augmentation. Just do so with caution. A good technique is to make your edit, step away from your computer, come back a few hours later with fresh eyes and see what it looks like. If it hits you in the face, then you've probably overdone it. But have some fun. Above all, have some fun. No matter whether you're a beginner or a professional, enjoy it. And I think these techniques are certainly helpful in that respect. Anyway, lots more content coming on the channel, and we will see you next time.